All right, in today's episode, we sit down with Nate Lewis and Brad Johnson from The Innocent. These guys are out there empowering law enforcement to take down child predators. No better fight, in my opinion. Let's go. Okay, let's do it. I'll do the intro and then we'll dive in. Hey, welcome to North Idaho Experience, a podcast for the people of North Idaho and those who are North Idaho curious. These are the stories of the people and the businesses and the things that call North Idaho home. If you guys are thinking about making North Idaho your home, give our real estate team a call, text, or email. This is our passion project. That's how we pay the bills. All right, jumping right in. Today we've got very special guests I'm pretty excited to have. We've got Nate Lewis and Brad Johnson from The Innocent. So last week we talked about human trafficking. We're following up again. We're going to dive into that a little bit more with another nonprofit that's doing amazing things out there. So welcome, guys. Good to have you both. For the camera, if you're looking at the camera, Brad's on the end, and then Nate is here in the middle. And then, of course, the lovely and talented Dave Fowler.
No introduction.
None needed.
Yeah, no, we're really excited to have you guys and to kind of go back a little bit. So, Nate, I know we haven't hung out. I just met you not too long ago. Brad, I've wanted Brad to come on here for whatever reason forever. There's always that guy when I worked for Coeur d'Alene PD. There's always like that dude in another department that you're like, I kind of want to be like that guy.
God, he's
like,
good.
That's a good-looking dude. Hey, a really cool guy. And then he's nice, too. And he's, like, got all his stuff together. And you're like, dang, dude. Brad
and that guy's name
cool.
is Joe over at the...
So, like, if I needed... Brad was, like, my catch-all. When I would meet guys from other departments, I'm like, oh, you're with Coeur d'Alene? I'm like, yeah, who are you with? And they're like, Post Falls. I'm like, hey, you know Brad Johnson? They're like, oh, yeah. And next thing you know, they were cool with me. So... Awesome. You have a pretty good rep.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I like it.
It's all you have these days, your reputation, right? So
pretty much.
It's hard, easy to lose too.
We'll see how it works when I get pulled over sometime.
Yeah,
drop that.
Big time. Man, I'll tell you what, we have hired so many new guys, these guys and gals in the last year and a half. Oh. Dropping names is hard to do anymore. They're like, I don't know that old bag of dust, dude. Yeah. The guy over there in the office that never leaves his computer. Yeah.
You know what? That's crazy, and that kind of leads into a little bit what you were talking about today. Because you guys are obviously in it. Nate, remind me, are you in law enforcement actively right now?
No.
Okay. No. So, and obviously Brad is, but one of the things that I've seen with law enforcement, I left in 2021. And right before I left, only a couple guys did. And then there was somewhat of a mass exodus. And it kind of hurts because I think that, I had a passion for law enforcement, fire, just public safety in general, and just serving the community. But there's a lot of good guys and gals that have left the career, and it puts a lot of weight on other people's shoulders. And so happy that you're still in it. And then stuff like this comes up, and this is something that I necessarily can't do anymore. This is something that you guys can, and so we're excited to see what you're doing in the community. And honestly, it's not really something that's local to just North Idaho, right? This is nationwide, worldwide, really. But to have people here that do have a focus on our community is pretty amazing.
Yeah. So, Nate, Brad said we should get into your background a little bit and how you got into this. Do you mind sharing some stories? Last week we had Angie Sidor on and her story of being trafficked. I mean, it's raw, man. Like, it hit me in a lot of ways. That was a pretty emotional podcast. So I'm trying to understand, the motivation that gets you. Obviously, we all as people, good people in society, we want to, combat these things, but some of us have a deeper connection with it. Like, is that your past as well?
Yeah, my past started, strangely enough, the past that I hid for a very long time started in the late 80s. I was just turned 12 years old, and I was abused by somebody I didn't know, and I didn't even know what it was. My parents didn't talk about it. Back in school, they weren't introducing it, and, that was something, I just started talking publicly about it. And I buried it for so long. I never, ever thought I would reapproach that. And I thought that was a part of my life that was just disappeared, even though it affected me in a certain way. And then here I go on about my life and moved to Los Angeles. And it wasn't long after being there, I was taken at gunpoint into a gang initiation by several gang members and went for a really fun joyride that night. And I ended up getting out, obviously, and then went through the whole court cases, prosecution, detectives, all the stuff that you do. That was my first real thing. Took the stand, faced them and their families, and had to go through the whole process. So I saw that, and I saw what it was like from the victim side, so to speak. And I hear some similar things that I felt even now. And then that probably affected me severely for about 10 years. Like I went into getting prepared for the next time. And because I just figured it was going to happen. And I went through this like a million times in my head, like, oh, I would have done this different. I would have done that. Oh, what would I have done? Oh, yeah. And then you just train, and then you just be completely on alert all the time. And so I was waiting for that to happen again. And it wasn't until I actually was talking to this guy who's he kind of does, I don't even know how to explain it. Guys who were taken hostage, he kind of works through their trauma. And it was a very simple question, man. He was like, so I told him what had happened. And he's like, dude, that's wild. Like, I got more details than I did hear it. He's like, how many people go through that in their life? I was like, I don't know, 1 in a million. He's like, bro, not 1 in a million, way higher. I was like, I don't know, to 1 in 10 million. He's like, I think it's higher than that, but just say 10 million. How many times do you think that same thing happens to the same person twice? And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been getting prepared for 10 years, preparing for the next time, and it's probably not going to happen. But my life was consumed by it, like it was consumed by it, like kind of sick, consumed by it. But it made me really good at my work and things. And so then I kind of moved forward from that. And then here I was. So my background is I worked in entertainment, movies, television for a long time. I've worked with Jim Caviezel. I still do. We were just on a call before this. And he was doing this movie called Sound of Freedom. He's like, hey, man, I'm going to this movie about this dude that goes and rescues these kids. And I was like, what? I started looking at it. Through him, I met the guy that he played and then got recruited into that organization. And then I started going international. And it was my first real deployment, so to speak, was in Northern Africa. And we'd been there for a couple weeks and went into several different countries. And it was hard to see girls, but it was also inspiring. Some of these girls that got out and their stories, and they were so doing such amazing work. But there was a day that I knew, and this was part of the reason we were even going there, a week before we were getting texts from, there were these witch doctors sacrificing children. They would decapitate siblings and leave them for dead. And we knew this was going on. We were going over there to see this one child who they had removed his hand and his genitals and split him open and left him for dead. Some kids found him. They kept him alive. But he hadn't been talking for about a year, and he needed a lot of surgeries and implants and certain things. And it's easier to go there than to get him to the United States to get help. And so I knew that was the purpose of going there. And through all these experiences, we ended up meeting him and going through some things, and we go to a house that's literally just packed of children who've survived and lived from child sacrifice in different forms and abuse. And man, it was one of the probably, I would say, top 3 to 5 pivotal days of my life. And it was extraordinary to see these kids who still had this childlike feeling, like this just thing that lit up. I had just left a 1-month-old. Sorry, honey. I know. I still apologize for that. And I had an almost 2-year-old, but this one girl was just doing the same things that my 2-year-old did, and then just watching them like laugh and play and like echoing off the walls and just this thing. And then having one of them ask like at the end when we're leaving, like, is this when I get to go? Do I get to leave now? But there was one girl, I'm not going to talk too much about her story, but she was taken at a very young age and done horrible things to her. And lack of oxygen to her brain caused what we know as cerebral palsy. So she becomes pretty much paralyzed. And she's laying there on the floor, and she just smiles. Like, it's her smile that's so contagious still. Like, super cool. I'll wait for the end of the story. But it was that moment that, man, I left there and I went back to my hotel, and man, there were so many emotions that I was feeling at the same time that shouldn't be happening. And as I mentioned, I've been taken at gunpoint. I remember the detectives asking me, like, hey, if you could request a sentencing, what would it be? And I was like, a 25-foot fence with my buddies for 24 hours, that's what I was thinking back then. But I didn't want to kill them. But man, that day, like the things that I saw, what people were doing to children, like I crossed the line. And then I was like, whoa, I'm actually here, and I told my wife. And then I just carried hate. And I was just living with hate, like anger, pissed off, right? Like, I don't want this. I want it out of my body, but that was just the beginning. And then it was time after time in all these countries and certain things that was just like boiling me, right? And so eventually, let me get to the gal that I saw who actually was just here in North Idaho and came to my house. that we ended up bringing her to the United States. We, meaning a massive team of people, coordinated these efforts. I helped raise money. Other people made it. Doctors, nurses, care teams, providers, her legal guardians, all this stuff. There's a lot of people involved, but they're here and they're like, hey, we're coming through town. Do you want? Oh my gosh, my wife got to meet her. Like, it was amazing. It was totally amazing. Really, really cool to be reunited here in North Idaho from North Africa.
Yeah.
You know, years later. And it's those stories that inspire me to continue to go, because you can see what's happening. When you see the 3 stages, I look at 3 stages, like you're currently being trafficked, you're in healing from being trafficked, and now you're like making it. You know, whether you're a hairdresser, you're doing nails, whatever your dream was, you're actually there. And you're happy, and you're moving on in your life. There's a future, you know, so there's all those different aspects of it. So those are a few of the stories. I've seen too many crazy things. I'll share a couple more, and then I'll tell you why we started what we do and what we do. But, you know, I spent some time in Thailand and just seeing the horrific things that are going on there. A lot of also online, like guys getting paid significant money to abuse children live in their sister's house to their nephew. And that was another one that just triggered me. And there's so many. I mean, I could tell so many stories about, you know, Airbnbs that were being ran as hotels, you know, like just for just boys under the age of 13. You know, all these things, forced begging to just, it's just, you know, you do that work and it's just all you deal with. It's all you see. And then it was at one point when people were like, I get it, but what are we doing here? Because there's a problem in America. And why is no one doing it? And this, my friends and stuff, we talked, and I knew lots of law enforcement. I was like, what's going on here? Like, what are we doing? And it comes down to some of the things that I think you were alluding to is, dude, we're strapped with budget. The number of people retiring earlier is increasing, and the number of people coming in is decreasing, and our funding is decreasing. And where's this training? And how do we go through this 6 months approval for budgets and all this stuff? And it was like, actually, one of our other buddies, Brian Lewis, who's on our team, we were at this event with Bree, who you're going to meet all these people today. And we were at an event, and Bree is a survivor. Her story is amazing. She's crazy awesome. And it just came to me, like, people were like, what do we do in this town? It was in Washington. What do we do? And it was like, well, Brian, you tell me, as the leader of your department, what do you need? And I need a line item budget, like, list. What do you need? And then I looked at the lady who was that ran this event. I was like, we're going to start a fundraiser. And then I looked at people and you're going to fund it. And they were like, yes, let's go. Well, there you go. So that's what it turned into, is like the people coming together as a community, raising the funds that bring us in to build a task force, essentially. But we provide equipment and software to be able to do these proactive investigations to hunt predators down online. And the whole task force thing really came from Brad initiated this training inside of his department, and then people started hearing about it, and all of a sudden we have 6 departments and 17 people attending, and it was like, well, Kootenai County has a task force. So, you know, like it just, and then that was like, wow, we're going to run with that model, and it came to Texas. We're going to another state here this next week, less than a week, going into, you know, big sheriff's departments, big attorney generals. Like now it's like, whoa, what do we get ourselves into, you know, kind of speak. Wow. But that's really how it all started, you know. And now, you know, we're dedicated to the children, to protect their innocence. You know, I think that's one of the most valuable commodities there is a child's sense of wonder. Yeah. You know, and then once that's ripped from them, how do you get it back?
Are you still working overseas, or are you now focused on?
No, 100% United States. So every single dollar that we raise, we're gonna deploy right here inside of our borders.
I had a question about the North Africa thing. Is that a cultural thing? What is going on there? Like Thailand, I can see that's probably just money. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about mutilating kids, what's the motivation?
Money. So these guys are magicians, and they have teams of people that do hocus pocus to get people to come in. They believe that if they come here, they pay for these good luck charms, genitals being good luck charms. And these things that they're going to have riches, whether prosperity over their business or land or health or whatever it may be. And they believe it. And they believe it because it's magic. It's literally smoke and mirrors. And things will happen, and they'll go like, this guy's for real. He's really a witch doctor. He can do healing. He can do all these things. And they just lay down cash.
So they're selling the parts of kids to be good luck charms for the elite or whoever.
Well,
Maybe
I
not
mean,
the elite.
elite in that country.
Okay.
You know, like
you telling me that makes me believe when I see, these articles on X or whatever, and it's like the elite are drinking the blood of infants. And like, when you tell me that, I'm like, oh shit, like, are people doing that? That kind of weird stuff?
I don't have personal experience
Right.
with
But it makes it believable to me if people are doing that.
Well, I have personal experience with that.
Yeah.
You know, what I just explained, like, I've seen those kids.
Right.
One of them's been at my house.
Wow.
You know, you're talking about blood being drained for years for whatever reason. The cause of the lack of oxygen. The cause the emergency surgery that needed to happen was because her body's caving in. She can't breathe. So they have to reconstruct her body so she can actually breathe so she doesn't suffocate. Those are from that, that abuse that was happening. Now, that's a form of trafficking. What we deal with is not so much that, but that is happening. There's a lot of sick stuff happening.
How do you manage, like, I'm curious because, we've all got a background in law enforcement and dealing with that trauma, right? You hold it in. How do you personally manage that? What's your outlet?
Well, assuming that I actually am able to manage it, I guess.
Sure.
I try to say I do my best. I have regiments that I deploy. I think I'm going to start implementing a punching bag more often.
Yeah.
But I mean, the reality, man, for me is that every single day I take about an hour in the morning where I don't have a phone, and it's quiet time before anyone's up in my house, and I get in. To me, I get in the Bible, man, and it protects me. I armor up. It resets me each single day to, I don't know, I can get so caught up within 24 hours of chaos. And it kind of focuses me and brings my anxiety and my level of hate down a little bit. And I have a couple other books. I do different types of therapy around here, not just like mental health therapy, like red lights and all kinds of different things. My health, exercise, hanging out with buddies. My kids fuel me. My kids fuel me a lot. Like
this is one of the big things with people that work in fields like you guys do is being able to have those supports and those outlets, right? Mm-hmm. I never made it into detectives. I never did that, but I always thought about the guys that had to deal with like crimes. Mm-hmm. And the fact that to come up with the evidence and everything else, the videos have to be watched, the evidence has to be processed, there has to be, a documentation on what exactly is going on, and that stuff can mess with your head. And so the stuff that you guys do, I wish that every single law enforcement agency for people that had to do crimes and those types of things, that they would be mandated to go to therapy once a month. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? On the department's dime. Like, hey, this is your 2 hours that you're going to do every month, because there's so much. And I think, honestly, the fact that you have the ability to talk about it openly and have people that support you is probably therapeutic as well. Mm-hmm. I know whenever we take a long drive, we usually get into conversations on things that I typically can't talk to other people about. But that's really important, because that stuff weighs. I mean, just hearing about it right now already upsets me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just hearing this, and I'm sure for other people listening to this, they're going to be frustrated. Knowing that this stuff is going on.
But I'm angry right now.
Yeah.
I live that.
Anger's a strong motivator.
Yes.
Right? But it's not healthy for you to be in that state all the time.
Dude, it's not. And I'm realizing that this is about 5 years. I only do this work. I don't have done anything else. And I tell these guys all the time, like, my best therapy is when we get on the road and we leave for 5 days and we just get to chill out and hang out.
Yeah.
Because, and when we're doing the course, it's really a sting operation. We're training for an undercover sting operation. Running those operations, dude, that is my why of why I put in the 40 to 60 hour weeks, is for those moments where we get to go bro time, and then we get to train other guys to go out and crush evil, and there's all these stories in the back of my mind. Like, he knows I kind of beat this over the head a lot, but for me, it's one, we're focused on the bad guys so much. We get focused on the bad guys, but for me, it's the kids. That's what really motivates me the most, only because I've seen these kids. I've heard them tell me, like, thank you. Like there's so many relationships in the world, right? Mothers, sons, daughters, fathers, husbands, wives, grandparents, there's a ton, coworkers. When you see someone, I gotta figure out how to use this real word, but somebody who pulled someone out of hell, that relationship between those two people there's no other relationship in the world like it. When you get to see those children who are like, I tried to commit suicide last night thinking God, if you can't take my life, I'm going to take it. And if you're not going to let me take it, send someone. And then someone actually shows up and helps that person out of this horrific life. And there's so many kids I feel that are out there praying for help, like help get us out of this situation. I think we have to focus on both. He knows this. Like, if there were no buyers, there'd be no traffickers, because they're the ones driving the demand for the trafficking. But man, I hate evil, and that's a huge focus of mine. But also, I feel for children. I'm not in the situation that they are in. I never was, but I know a little bit of what it's like to have my freedom taken and to be abused and controlled for a little bit of your life, and I hate that. It affects you long term. So that is really the focus, honestly, for me. When I think about the children, that's my drive, my why.
No, that's awesome. And obviously this stuff goes on everywhere. And I want to switch gears a little bit. And Brad, maybe we can ask you a little more about local too. Is, obviously you guys are up here, right? We're not in North Africa. We're not in Thailand, not anything else. So you guys are up here. So obviously there's a need for this type of thing. And I think that in North Idaho, this is a great place to live. It really, really is. I mean, I tell people all the time, we got our tattoo artist up here right now, and he's staying at we have some clients have a place down on Sherman, and they put him in there, and he called me the first night, and he's like, "Hey, is there a lock to the garage?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "From the door from the apartment to the garage." I'm like, "Well, the garage is closed." He goes, "I know, but is there a lock?" I go, "No, there's no lock." And he's like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Bro, you don't this is not necessarily the community where people think about that all the time, right? Because persons crimes are pretty low in North Idaho for a lot of reasons that we've talked about before. But talk to me about specifically like North Idaho. You guys are obviously doing something up here. So what are we looking at? Because people always want to know, right? What is it that we're dealing with up here? Is this in existence up here? Is this something that you guys since this is the focus, what type of numbers, what are the things that we're talking about in North Idaho?
So the numbers part, Nate's the stats guy, right?
Okay.
So like I lean on him for a lot of that, but without trying to create like an undue, I don't want to freak people out,
right.
But it's not a big city problem. It's not a specific rural problem. It's an everywhere problem where there is an appetite for a certain demographic to be attracted to children. They try and call it minor attracted persons or whatever they want to title it these days, but there's an appetite everywhere for seeking children out for, purposes. And so our goal is to go wherever it is and to weed out those people, to expose them in those communities and hold them accountable. And so that's kind of one of them. The crimes in and of itself might not be produced just by people looking online to try and get kids. Obviously, that's a thing, and that's where we kind of flex. But a lot of it is known people within their family friends, people that are of trust in their kind of sphere of influence. And so even though we might not root those people out online, like the abuse within trusted circles is like a very real thing. And you talk to any crimes investigator in any state, right? And we are not immune to it here, and we're not unique, right? By having them or not having them. It's just every single detective's division in the country is dealing with a lot of crimes with children. And so when we look at that, we might not expose it as a human trafficking or a child trafficking thing in the headlines, but every investigations unit is dealing with lots of crimes against kids. So that's just to be aware that it's happening. Is kind of the first step, and then to be aware that it's happening online, because these platforms is like a relatively new thing. We didn't grow up with this, right? And so now the way we explain it in a lot of our videos is like the bad guys are not going to the playgrounds anymore. The whole, free candy written on the side of the white van, stay away, stranger danger. The kids are, for sure, we're teaching them that, but we're not teaching them that stranger danger online is a real thing too, a lot of parents are, but man, I run into so many parents that are just like, I had no idea that he was communicating with all these people on their phones. And, I think that we tend as parents to see our kids for who they are, just good kids that are out there trying to do the good thing. They got their friends and their sports and everything like that. But when we send them in their room at night and they're scrolling on their phone, like there's tons of people that have access to them, you know, and
it's super hard. My kids have never had social media. Like they have their cell phones and stuff like that, right? But Brad's not texting them on their phone. You know, they're giving out their phone number to whoever, to their friends. But we don't have social media for them for that reason, right? And I've talked to my daughter about it. Like you don't get Instagram, you don't get, and I have to fight the culture out there because a lot of parents allow their kids to do that.
Yeah.
And I really look at Instagram and Facebook as an 18+ thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you need to be aware of what's going on. And even more than that, I'm sure you guys you probably know this, but the psychological impact that being able to be on social media and comparing yourself to your friends all day, how that changes people's their feelings for themselves. I mean, I do it, right? I get on there and I'm like, oh, dude, that guy's buff. I wish I could.
Freaking Brad's
I wish
hair
I
is
could do
so
it. Yeah,
nice.
Brad looks so good.
That's
I
why I
look
wear
at
a hat,
social
'cause it's
media and I'm
young.
like, God dang it. I wish I could grow a beard that smooth. But seriously, the comparison and like the self-esteem changes that come from those things. But I don't think any parents should allow their kids to have social media until they're 18. Just who cares? But we fight the stigma because they go to school and their friends have it.
absolutely.
So why don't I get it?
Question: Is this becoming more prevalent, or is it because of the platforms make it easier? You know what I mean? I feel like back in the day, you know, the kidnapping at the playground or whatever, that's like harder to do than to start communicating with some kid on Instagram.
Yeah.
Especially as AI comes into it, now you can mask yourself.
Totally.
And you can look like something entirely different.
Yeah, so I think absolutely it's becoming, there's a couple layers to that, I think. To answer your first question, yeah, absolutely. I think it's becoming more prevalent because it's easier for sure. And then we have the access, and we talk about this a fair bit too, just the access to online pornography is really fueling more deviant behavior in a lot of people. I mean, that time during 2020 when people were stuck at home, I watch your podcast enough to know
Good job. Thank you.
I got you, dog.
Out of all
Look
the
at
shit-
that.
Out of
We
all the
don't
shit
have
we
to-
talk about, that's the one word we can't.
We don't have to blank out anything. Good work.
So during that time, man, people are stuck at home and just online pornography viewing, and then the money that people are spending just absolutely through the roof. And there's stats that are like hundreds of percentages up in just the content viewing, right? And then through that, like more and more deviant behavior. We know just from brain psychology and cognition through viewing that kind of stuff that you can't watch the same stuff forever consistently and still be tickled by it, right? So things get more deviant, and then you start, you know, depending on where people's kind of kinks go, they oftentimes are going to get younger and younger and younger. And we've seen that just even before the internet. We've seen that, you know, the magazines that were out when we were young, like Barely Legal was the title, right? Like, well, obviously there's been an appetite for this for a while, for like getting as close to the line as we can get without crossing it. And now we have anonymity. And we have access to, you know, to the kids, and we can be anonymous. And so I think that absolutely it's part of it is just the idea that I have access to a lot more things, and I can try and at least dodge any accountability or somebody catching me doing it.
Right.
What does like the typical operation look like when you guys are running through the whole thing?
Yeah, so when we land in an agency, so our program looks like it's about a day and a half of classroom. And I hate PowerPoint. I've been doing it since the military all the way through policing, but it's like such an effective form of a way of communicating, right? So I've been a police trainer for a long time. And so what we realized is, yes, I need to deliver the information, but man, adults learn so many different ways that we have to put them, in our opinion, me and my other trainer, Brian, like we have to put them through a real life deal, because there's going to be other ways that you're going to learn things and you apply the things that we taught during the classroom portion that are going to click for people, right? And so when we land there, it's about a day and a half of PowerPoint. We talk about the operation itself, how to plan it, things like that. And then about the back half of the second day, that's when it goes to you guys are planning the op yourself. So we're advisors. We're giving you there's paperwork to fill out, and you're developing your own PowerPoint for a brief back. And then you go out and do site surveys for all the places that you think are good takedown spots. And then by the end of that day, you have your whole plan briefed, or your whole plan documented. And then the third day that we're there, you brief it back, and we are hitting the road chatting, like guys are chatting usually the day before or so, because we want to develop relationships with people online, right, that want to have kids. And so by midday on the third day, like chatters are like, all right, I got, John from the next town over on the hook. Like if my takedown team and surveillance guys are ready, like let's chat them in. And so that third day is a full like 12, depending on how many people we're talking to, it could be a 12 or 14, 16 hour op. And then we're just hooking and booking.
Do you see a particular demographic in the offenders that's more prevalent?
That depends on the area where we go. Yeah.
Like age, male, female, whatever.
And it's predominantly male.
Okay.
We get females. A lot of the females involved in trafficking, a lot of them are the traffickers themselves we see. So I hate to be exposing to people that don't realize this stuff, but there is a lot of parents that sell their kids, unfortunately. They're literally selling their kids their own children into slavery. They're having their kids recruit other friends and stuff like that. And so when we do decoy ops, sometimes we'll play the child, right? And then be talking to the bad guy and he'll come in to meet me. There's other times where we play a parent and we're saying, hey, we'll sell our child to you, for whatever the going rate is in that area. And then people will come in to meet me or meet my partner thinking he's talking to a dad. And then we're going to send him across the street to the hotel. And so it's a real thing. So the demographic is predominantly male, but man, it's kind of, a cross section of the demographics of where you live. Yeah. So up here, it'd be predominantly white males that we see. If we're pulling from Spokane, you might get a little bit more diverse, but, and then it's all walks of life. I mean, trucking is like there's a trafficking problem in trucking, right? And lot lizards and all that stuff. But, and so we have a lot of that through here.
I haven't heard that in a while.
Throwback. So we have a corridor here where there's a lot of places that the truckers go. So you might have that demographic, you have lower socioeconomic status, and then we see a lot of just like normal dudes. Like there could be somebody that we've arrested that sitting at this table with us that you'd never know is like doing weird things on the internet, right? Just normal everyday guys. Man, we did an op in Central Washington last year. We arrested 13 people in 3 days, and the vast majority of them, you open their phone, and their background on their phone is like a picture of them and their family.
That's crazy.
Or them and their daughter.
Dude.
Like
Yeah.
him holding his daughter, like 2-year-old.
What the fuck?
Dude, guys
It's
that
a
we
trip.
arrested that are showing up to meet an 11-year-old, and they have an 11 and 9-year-old at home. Like,
That's insane.
That is
to be able to
insane.
see the crossover between what you have.
For sure.
I would assume that these people probably have quite a bit of relational issues too. Especially coming from, you're bringing up the Bible earlier and everything else. And I've talked to my wife about this before and other people and even premarital counseling. I get to do another wedding this year and I love it. Nice. But I talk about like male and female porn. Now, male porn is obviously much more prevalent. It's a lot easier for us to identify. But these relational issues that cause mess ups in people's heads, men look at pornography, whatever else, and it puts this expectation on wives and what they're supposed to do and everything else, right? It increases a threshold, and then it creates an empty cup, and now they go to find it somewhere else. And I've even cautioned, I've talked to premarital counseling. I'm like, there's female porn too. I'm like, it's just not visual. And I joke, I'm like, Hallmark. Just get rid of Hallmark movies, please.
Yeah.
I joked with my wife about it. I go, here's the example. I'm like, you watch The Notebook? I'm like, you see him kissing in the rain? Nobody does that. I'm not going to kiss you in the rain. We're going to go inside. This is ridiculous. Like
getting
that
wet
type
and
of
it's so terrible.
Yeah, it's the dumbest thing,
yeah.
right? But it's something that women also look for as well. They look for that relational thing and everything else. And so, I'm sure that, and I don't know how often it is that you catch people and then you find out that they've had affairs and they've had other issues down the road. It seems like it's a workup to those to get caught.
Yeah, and it's very rarely. What do we say? Like by the time offender gets caught, they've had the stat for victims or will victimize in their life.
Yeah, the average, according to the National Offenders Registry, the average predator will abuse 117 victims in their lifetime. I think it's way higher though.
Wow,
insane.
But you got to understand, at 29, you can become a predator, right? Good. There's no age. If you lived, there was a 71-year-old man that drove hours to come here to meet a girl. So he's 71. So think about that time. And then if you divide it by how many a year, like that's only a couple of years. Dude, these guys going to be every weekend. This could be every weekend to them, And here's the other thing. We know people who are victimizing their own children multiple times a day, And so this is, the stats hard to believe. I think with my own experiences, it's difficult for me to believe it's only 117. Now, that's an average. So probably the guy that only molested 3 is throwing that average off, I think. Because I think there's probably predators who've been doing it for 30 years, I mean,
For sure.
Crazy.
What kind of teeth does law enforcement have? You catch a guy like this, are they going away for a long time?
Great question.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I think that begs the question about law enforcement versus vigilantes, right? And we get this question all the time about what do we think about vigilantes, and there's a few things that turn me off about the idea. And number one, it's that very rarely do they make good cases. Because I've been through a 40-hour course just on how to talk to people online.
Wait, can you break down vigilante? I'm picturing in my mind Dave
Yeah.
and I, who are not cops anymore, roll into this house
Right.
in the middle of the night and just smoke some dude. That's not what you're talking about.
No, I love that idea
Okay, yeah,
for
me
sure. However, no, I'm talking about the guys that'll go online and chat,
Okay.
and then they'll call them in because we've all seen the videos where dude kind of jumps out of his car and he's like, "Hey, are you so and so? Are these your chats?" And then they
Yeah,
beat
there's
him
a guy
up.
over in Spokane that does that. I'm sure you've seen him.
We've had a local dude here that we dealt with all the time as well.
Yeah.
So first and foremost,
If I build a good case, though, is that good? Can I
Then
give you
can we
guys
go-
something?
So
I would imagine. I'm just guessing.
You guys-
if I could
most
build
of
a
them
good
haven't
case,
trapped
give
him.
yeah.
Most of them are probably they entrapped
Yeah.
him.
I could set some time aside to be like, I will find you somebody. I will build a case.
Hey, we'll put a civilian through our course and just let you guys put a few, and then we'll give you the. But that's like the foundation to the good case, right? Is the conversation that you're having online. And so a lot of these guys, you don't know that the biggest defense that they're going to have is an entrapment defense. And oftentimes these vigilante chats are entrapping people, right? It's their goal is not let's make a good case and find the guys that are actually pursuing kids. It's let's go to the pool and we think we're shooting fish in the barrel and we're going to entice somebody. They're not enticing the child, we're enticing the person, and then they're like, oh, well, you were willing to have sex with an underage person, and so now we're going to beat you up or pee on you or some weird thing like that, right?
They might like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like,
Possible.
why are you getting up? Never mind. So,
What work?
yeah, so good cases generally aren't made, right? And then you could be making them smarter too, right? The bad guys are like, oh, cool, I wasn't held accountable. How do I defeat the thing that got me there the next time I go out and do it, right? And then there's the idea that it's super risky for the vigilantes too. We all you back that person into a corner and they think their life's coming to an end.
Yeah.
You might have the fight of your life on your hands. They might be armed, something weird like that. And so the vigilante stuff is not something that we promote, right? And I got all sidetracked on the vigilante thing.
To answer your question,
Oh, yeah, perfect.
and I don't think it's law enforcement that puts them away for a long time. Law enforcement detectives do the best work. They build the strongest cases, and then it gets handed off sometimes to a prosecutor who has a massive caseload that has higher priority than these
Yep, we've all
children
seen that.
crimes. And then that case is like, well, I'm not taking that one to trial. We'll just plea out of
Yep.
court, and let's just give them 6 months in the county. And you're like, what?
Yeah, would you do that if that was your kid, Mr. Prosecutor? Like,
And
come
the
on.
other part is what are you doing to law enforcement? You just deflated them from putting in all this time and hard work to build a solid case. It's hard to walk the line of entrapment and actually get things to come through, and then you get them to commit and you get them to show up. You follow all the thousands of rules that law enforcement has to follow, and then somebody, even if the prosecutor actually works with you and they take it across the finish line, then you have a judge who actually gets to tell them what the sentence is, right? So now you're like, please just give it to them, And then as we're seeing, and I think a lot of people in North Idaho are seeing too, is and I'm not going to get into the controversy, but there's people who are not getting very much time behind bars.
Yeah.
I feel like our legal system is, when we talk about woes and issues that we have, the legal system is just about the root of damn near everything nowadays, and it almost seems like it used to exist to protect the innocent, and now it's here to protect. That's right. Right.
And make no doubt about it, we are all for the Constitution. Right? That's why I think, enjoy all living up here. However, I don't want to create a culture where we're trying to manipulate the Constitution to keep bad people out of jail. And so for the viewers, if there's one thing that you're like, hey, what can I do? Be a voter. Be informed. Every time a term comes up for a judge, they are going to be on a voting ballot. and inform yourself on who's going to come to the ballot and look into what kind of sentences over what kind of crimes they have made decisions over. Because we see judges come up on the ballot, in our opinion, judges that give light sentences for heavy crimes. And we're like, man, what are we doing here? And it's really going to take the people to educate themselves. Because I think generally you're like, oh, I've never heard of that guy, so he must not be doing that bad. Yeah, reinstate him, you know?
On that note, Boardman is going to head up a judicial watch group.
Awesome.
That we're going to do a podcast episode on, you know, I don't know, quarterly, whatever. So if you have info, get it to Boardman, because you can't find, when you go to vote and you see all the judge names, there's no info on them.
No, not a thing.
Oh, man.
It's just their name.
But if you ask the cops, they know. They
Absolutely.
know how
Brilliant.
these men and women are adjudicating these cases.
Yeah.
So, that's coming, and I think that could be
awesome.
a good way to get the information out to the people out there. At least for here in Kootenai County.
Yeah, Kootenai County Prosecutor's Office, the prosecutor puts out briefs on, they'll give you like a background of the case and then a little bit of the recommendation from the prosecutor what sentencing should be, and then who the judge is and what the judge did. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's exposing some bad decisions.
Is there a resource for that online? Where
That's
would
just
people go
on
find that?
Facebook.
On Facebook.
Kootenai County Prosecutor's Office on Facebook, and they do these briefs.
Got it.
And so I think that's important. Just follow them, and you get to see these briefs, and they'll talk about who the judge was and what they're doing. And it's funny. We did an event at Life Coffee House. We're great friends with Dave and Brooke, and they're big supporters of what we're doing. And we did an event there one time, and we talking about this exact thing, and some lady from the crowd like shouts out one of the judges' names, and like I silently and clapping in my head like, oh good, people are paying attention, somebody is, you know.
Yeah.
And then when there was another Facebook post from actually in North Idaho News, it wasn't even the prosecutor's office, that talked about somebody's sentence from a case similar to this, and one of these judges is just getting raked over the coals in the comments section. And I'm like, okay, good, people are waking up and understanding that, yeah, the arrest matters, but if we don't get a prosecution, then what are we even doing? We're wasting time and resources if somebody's not going to be held accountable.
Right.
A lot of donors like the arrest stats because they're from, how many arrests did you get on this op this weekend? It's like, well, we have a lot of arrests, but if nobody ends up going to jail, are we creating risk for the people that are on the other side of that chat screen? You know what I mean?
Sorry.
Got you, dog.
It's called silence.
It is silenced.
So I'm glad that we're keeping it super light on this podcast.
Yeah,
So that's
that's
a
how we
good.
roll. That's how we roll. Man. Okay, so this judicial watch group is going to be really important. I think.
Absolutely, big time, especially for this topic.
Yeah, especially for this topic.
Yep. I'm here to support that however I can. And I can get a bunch of people to support it too.
Cool.
So however we can get involved, let me know.
Let me ask you
Go ahead.
another stat number real quick. How many people actively are you having engaging in communication online in North Idaho right now?
You want me to throw out the one we did a year ago?
Yeah,
Maybe
so
that,
there's
because I don't want to like give a
there's-
current info. Is that
Well, here's what I'll say. There's a few different investigative strategies that we have.
Okay.
If we go more to the overt side, to where we are putting ourselves out there, we could get hundreds of
Really?
of unique phone numbers reaching back out to us. If we just exist online, we've had cases where we're getting hit up from Craigslist, from Facebook Marketplace, Reddit. Just existing as a teenager online, you absolutely will get solicited.
Oh, for sure.
Snapchat
Kids
all the
can't-
time.
You can't avoid it as a child.
And the thing,
Unbelievable.
They're enabling it.
and the thing with
I can tell you.
the platforms is that it might not be unique to North Idaho, but and a lot of people ask this question, so I'm glad you did. How many bad guys are we talking to in North Idaho right now? Well, in my mind, it's not necessarily how many in North Idaho, it's how many targets are in North Idaho. And targets, like I hate to use that term for kids, but your kids are potential victims because anybody that they have communication with online, it doesn't matter where they live, I could be a potential victim. You know what I mean? So,
Well, that's a great way for you to say it because, like I said, for parents that are watching this, if you're understanding what Brad's saying, your kid can be a target just because of these social media things. So consider
100%.
have a talk with your kids about this because if they're on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, stuff like that, just hearing like they will be solicited to, man, I mean, that's wild. That drives me crazy.
Yeah, so 1 in 5 children will be solicited for sex online before they turn 18.
That's cool.
And I think that number will continue to go up. You know, and now not only are they enabling it, like these platforms are introducing grown men to young children, and then as soon as you hit accept, they're giving you 5, 10, 15, 20 more, 100 more. And these aren't just from Idaho all the time. They can be from all over. But here's the thing about preserving the innocence of a child. We've seen this. We're just pretending to be a chick, right? And what's the first message that comes in is a picture of a grown man saying, rate my fill in the blank.
Eggplant.
Why in the world would a platform, first of all, I would never introduce a stranger, 51-year-old to an 11-year-old. Hey, I think you guys should talk. Why?
But why? Yeah.
Why? And then not only as soon as you say yes to that connection, because it goes back to what you're talking about, my identity and popularity amongst my peers is about how many friends and followers I have. I'm going to let them all in.
My daughter's friends have Facebooks and stuff, and they will friend me, and I will decline it.
I always decline
And I've told
those,
I've told my
dang
friends,
it.
the only girl that is my friend is my daughter's best friend, who's like our daughter.
Yeah.
She's on there. My other friends, I went to my buddy. Gosh, why am I forgetting his name? Now I'm not even going to say it because it'll sound embarrassing. Anyways,
I got this homie over here.
no, Jake, his daughter is a good. I mean, play volleyball together, and she friended me. I absolutely not. I had to her, hey, make sure she knows that I don't want to be her friend.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be her
What
friend.
good
There's
comes
no
from that?
reason that
Yeah.
she should see the stuff that I post and everything. There's no reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Safe bet there.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, but their identity is with the number of friends, man. So they're letting them all in, you know. And I think that it's important. You know, parents want to not let their kids have social media until they're 18. But I look at it like driving a car, right? Like, how much time do we put into our kids when they're about to get their driver's license?
A lot.
A lot.
I literally put together a rodeo for our
Yes, you
kids
did.
and made them go through cones and do all. Oh yeah.
So what are we doing as parents? What rodeo are we setting up for when they're 18?
Right.
And they're going to get a
Right.
social media
They
account.
magically turn 18 and now they can figure shit out.
You're like, here,
Not a chance.
here, not only am I going to give you access to the world that has no restrictions, I'm handing the whole world you on a platter because they're going to have access right to you.
Yeah.
And I haven't even like taken you through the course yet, but you figure it out and tell me how I should be a parent about it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, no, I think we need to have certain restrictions. I think as parents, you know, one of the first things, get rid of disappearing messages for the love of God. Why did we introduce that in all these messaging platforms? What are you hiding? What photos or what conversations are you hiding from your parents? Not just parents, but people. From your spouse.
My daughter even hides bananas from me when I tell her to eat them. And they find them 4 months later down in her room.
Or vitamins.
She got pulled out of class by Wolfinger on that one. Yeah.
This
They had to
for
go
hiding
home and
bananas?
Scrape the banana off of her desk downstairs. It was disgusting.
The soda cans under the
gosh.
sink
Yep.
upstairs.
Dude, I know. Why is there soda can in
They're
here?
sneaky little buggers, dude.
Question for you guys, because this would be something that that I would really want to help host, potentially provide the venue for this to happen. Do you guys offer classes for parents to sit down and say, hey, this is what your kids are exposed to? I would love to be able to host a class where we could have credible people come in and say, listen, do whatever you want with your kids, but we want to make sure that you understand this is what, because you're talking about decreasing targets in North Idaho, right?
Yep.
I would be all about putting on regular classes for something like that if you guys could do. The other one is something for kids. You just talked about putting them through a rodeo. How can we help? And is this something that is possible? Have you talked about it to where we could have classes for teenagers, for seniors, for whatever, to where they can come in and we can have a real conversation as to what they can be exposed to? Because some of those kids are going to have it either way. If they can at least be educated and say, well, I don't want to be trafficked. I don't want to have sex with a 71-year-old man. I don't want those things. They can be more aware of it as well. Is that ever an option or something that can happen?
I'm glad you asked.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Do you want me? Yeah. So, one, we can come in and talk at any point. We don't have the curriculum yet, but I've been working with an organization. We've had a lot of talks about how much do we want to play a part in it. Right now, we're going to support them, and they've been developing the best curriculum I've seen in my career. It's been 4 years in the making. It was supposed to be launched in April. I was promoting it and everything, and just because it's so robust, the website can't handle it. They're upping it up. But anyways, next month, it's going to be available. So what it is it's a 12-hour training for the public. But it was designed, and one of our board members is a school resource officer. My idea was, let's build a school resource officer training because they're with the kids on the front lines in schools. And so he's been helping with that. And actually, he actually ran it through his schools, and they had 2 kids come forward and say that they were being abused. So this is an education. Now, let me break it down a little bit more. It's a 12-hour education. Once you go through that education, there's an hour presentation. You can now go teach that hour to community members or whatever. But it will be available to anybody, right? And
well, I would love to see if there's any way as well. Like I said, just having you guys and the energy and the background and everything else. If there's ever an opportunity to collaborate to put something like that on, dude, I'll fill a place for you to give you access to parents and kids that need to know about this stuff that will listen, because 12 hours is great, but trying to get people to sit down that long, but being able to able to bring people in for an hour and say, hey, we got something that critically can affect your kids, their lives. You know, if you're a parent and you don't want to see this stuff happen to your kid, this is a great opportunity for information.
Yeah, so just so you know, that 12-hour is for like one who has time, super passionate, and they're the spearhead for the community, and they want to be somewhat of a professional, not an expert, so to speak, but you'll be somewhat of a professional.
That's cool.
I
might talk to you about that.
That is amazing. We're going to get 2 types of comments on this video when it goes out. There's going to be the parents that want that. Yeah. And then there's going to be the retired pipe hitters out there that are like, yo, just drop me a name and an address.
And we get it, dude. Sometimes it's time to raise the black flags and start slitting throats.
There's a lot of red tape nowadays.
Yeah.
Right? For everything. There's a lot of red tape, and it kind of sucks. Like, it kind of sucks.
It does in a way,
Because, I mean, I don't know how many times in law enforcement you've arrested somebody, and you're like, they've told you they're guilty. They know that the crime occurred. They admit to their motive and everything, and then you have to go through months or years of litigation, and sometimes the crime doesn't even come fit with a bill for it, right? That's hard. Yeah. And so it does. It pisses people off. That's why you see those stickers on the back of cars right now talking about pedophiles, right? It's like, oh, shoot, like we're creating some vigilantes right here.
Yeah. But I think the vigilante, I think there's good in vigilantes, because I know where the heart is to just channeling the energy in the right way. Right? Like those are the type of people that should be spearheading. Like, hey, look, here's what's the deal. You talk about red tape. I know this organization called The Innocent. All they do is cut red tape, right? There's no waiting for equipment at all, right? It gets delivered 2 days, usually by Amazon. There's no like, oh, we got to free up our budget. No, you get to save that budget for training, because we're going to come to you, and you don't even have to send people. You guys are going home at night. We're cutting all the red tape that we can. That's part of what we want to do, so that we can build those task forces to build strong cases, so you don't have to wait 2 years, right? Because sometimes, as you guys know, build the strongest case you can. So, I mean, 80% don't go to trial anyways? Well, I don't know what the exact number is.
Probably even more than that, to be honest with you.
Right. So, but if you have a strong enough case.
Because they're pleading them out. Like nobody wants their chat log on a poster board in front of the jury. Well, when you see some of the chats that we have, so
if they're good, they have to be really good cases. That's why you got to get this.
That's why you take a 40-hour class to do, to make them strong.
How can people help The Innocent?
Several ways. TheInnocent.org is our website. On the homepage, just sign up for our email, because that's where we're going to be able to. We're getting shadow banned on social media, if that's a surprise to you. So the only real form.
Why? Is it because the words were like? I'm wondering when this episode goes out, how YouTube is gonna deal with it, because we're using words that they probably don't like.
You know what? I think that my account goes against community standards for protecting children for some reason. Here's a real story. Here's a real story.
We get TOS'd all the time.
Listen to this. I can't answer your question because I don't understand. Yeah. All I did as a post is just a graphic. It's not even a video. It's a graphic that says 90% of victims are abused by somebody they know or trust. It's credited Department of Justice. I can't even pay to get it out there as an ad. It doesn't
make sense. It's not like you're taking this isn't a political thing, right?
Totally not political at all.
It affects everybody. I don't know, man.
And I think because maybe at some point I did say right now children are being trafficked in America, and they're like, flag that account. Yeah. Microscope it. So I don't know, but I'm just telling you, dude, it is nuts. So let me go back to answering your question. Yeah. Sign up for the email on our website, because through email, we know we can actually deliver that content to you, right? And so when we get that education, or when we get certain tips or certain things, or there's legislation where we're talking to a guy who sits in a house and about laws and certain things, and we want to be able to push that out there and get people support, or even support you. So when we need people to support like what you're about to do with the judges and stuff, we can communicate. So that's one area. Go on there. If you're on Instagram, we're at theinnocent.usa, but also there's a little blue button. And I hate having to say this, but the reality is we're funded by the people. Period. We don't take government funding. We don't. You
don't want to take government funding.
Right. I know. That's why I trust.
We're trying to cut the red tape. Not
Yeah. I don't need to add more. Trust me. And so there's a blue button in. Even if it's $10 a month, we call it like become a protector.
Yeah.
$10 a month, and I know that's not a lot of money. I know guys spend more than that on booze, right?
Oh, for
way
sure.
more.
Yeah.
But if a lot of people come together at $10 a month, that's a small amount of money. We can deliver equipment every month to a department or to a task force, And depending on how that grows, like we can potentially start building 2 task forces a month instead of just 1 task force, which is 1 is awesome, But we, donate. That's how we're funded. There's also a community. So 2 other ways. Law enforcement, click on the law enforcement tab. Fill that out with your government issued email address because that's an easy way for us to vet all the people that are like, I'm a cop from a Yahoo account. So
I'm a cop.yahoo.com. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Use your actual department email, please. Go there, fill that information. We'll get in contact with you. We'll be able to at least provide you some like equipment and some software, maybe potentially just get you some investigative tools that you need that's super easy and quick for us to do. And then we can also discuss like how these trainings and stuff go. So that's law enforcement. For community members, click on community, fill that out. We'll get in touch with you. There's also a form. We can spearhead and build a website for a fundraiser with a QR code, and people can go and really start. We need a spearhead in a community that really charges this. It says, hey, we want this to come to our community. Because once we come in and we give them the equipment and the training, they just go and do their thing, and then we bounce to another state, right? Mm-hmm. So just get us there to get it going. Right, and there's actually different forms. Brad can talk a little bit more about the different sets of training that we provide. Some of them are less expensive, like to just get someone chatting, or if you want the full-scale operation course, like it does cost a little bit more money. But as a community, it's nothing. Mm-hmm. There's like one dude that could write that check.
It costs more money for the donors. It costs us more money, not for the department.
Yeah, the department never pays nothing.
Okay,
they don't pay anything. Period. We pay for everything and then some. So
that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. Well, here's what it is, man. The people are funding the police in a very specific crime. That's a child crime. Yeah. It's not like, I want to fund our police, and we do want that, but I want to fund it in a very specific, proactive approach to these crimes, not reacting. Too late. That's what we think is too late. So how do we get out there?
One time is too late.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yep.
Man, we have a donor who, I want to get him on video saying this because it breaks my heart, man. He was abused pretty horrifically as a child. And I was like, dude, what if we were to train one cop to make one arrest that would have prevented you from going through that, dude? And you should just hear, if he just breaks down and he's like, man, my whole life would be different. I can't even imagine all the pain that I caused myself and others around me. And he's like, that one life, I would have do anything if it was just my life that could have been prevented. Just mine, one life, you know? And that's the reality, man, is like, I know we're going to affect more than that. And the stats that everybody wants to know and donors want to know, we will never know. Because what we're trying to do is prevent it from happening. So how many victims will never have to experience this? We'll never know that number.
Yeah. And to your point about community, because we'll talk about building people up to do community fundraisers for their own community and raising that money that stays locally. A great example for that is what we talked about, Erin, at 756 Dark. Like, she did that exact model. And if you need a model to kind of replicate in your area, if you're watching this, she's a great one. Jump on her website and you can communicate with her. She literally was like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take donors. We're going to all come together. We're going to do this event. And then I'm going to take all the money that we raise and donate it. And we got it split between us and another nonprofit in Washington. And it was just like, hey, let's all get together. Let's do this collective thing that, I know you guys like it. It's a challenge. It sucks a little bit. And that, you create good things out of some adversity. And then she got the community together to donate, and and gave it to very specific causes that are proactively doing stuff in this space. So great model, and she's a great person to look up to be part of that if you want to do something locally.
Oh yeah, and she's helped even beyond that. She's helped us tremendously on so many
Big
levels.
time. Big time.
You get those people, you know, like I said, that are going to do the 12-hour course, that are going to spearhead this, that are going to be passionate, that are going to drive it, they're going to charge. You know, they're a hero, because we can't do what we do. Yeah. We can do specific things well, but we can't do that without the people fueling us, right? And so when we have people out there that are putting that together and putting on the events and raising those funds for us, like, we're not professional fundraisers by any means, but we have a great mission we believe in, and it's effective, and we got really good feedback from almost all the cops we've ever trained. So we know we have a good product, and then you have people out there that have expertise. And that's the other thing. I want to answer your question too like this. People say, how do I get involved? I always ask them, well, what do you do? What's your background? Mm-hmm. And I'll give some specific examples. We've had people who are like, well, I'm just a dentist, man. I don't even know what I can do. I don't kick down doors. I'm like, I know some girls that struggle with their own personal, you know, like image and all this stuff. I was like, you know, I'm sure they would love a new smile. And he's like, 2 of them. Right. And then there's people who are like, hey, I don't have much to offer, man. I just do email marketing. I was like, well, every company needs email marketing. Right. You're on, you know, HR, from whatever it may be. So looking at like, what is it that you do? And that's usually how I define, like, okay, like I'm talking with a guy right now, and he's like, oh, I've built and sold multi-million-dollar companies, lots of them. I don't know how I can help you. I was like, well, I'm sure at least you can give some advice. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like you've done really well in life. Maybe you just like are an advisor. So there's so many ways that people don't even understand that they can use their gift or expertise or experiences, wisdom to channel for a good effort. You know, certain things like video teams, you know, all kinds of things. It's insane. It's literally almost everywhere you look at it, somebody can be involved at some point, somehow, some way. Even if it's like, hey, this event, October 10th here in Coeur d'Alene, 756 Dark, we need people to set up. You know, like if that's the all you do is just show up and help set up, like that helps. It really does. It really helps a lot and helps you get involved, and then you're there. But talk about it. You know, it's so easy. It doesn't matter what your background is. You can talk about this stuff. Yeah. And I think that that's the first step after getting educated is once you get educated, just start talking about it. It's very difficult to talk about these things, you know, and we're not even scratching the surface here, but it's difficult because you know, the human brain can't take a child and an adult and connect them through the word. So it's difficult. We don't want to think about it. We don't like thinking about it. But the reality is we can ignore it and kind of pretend that it's not happening, or we can actually protect like, what's the risk? Your children lose their innocence? Yeah. And you want to, oh, I'm wrong. I was wrong. You know, or you say, hey, I'm willing to be wrong about this, but I'm still going to take the steps to protect my children. Yeah. You know, so there's a lot that can be done, man. And, you know, those just stay in touch with us, and we're going to keep people educated and show up to the events. And, you know, obviously we'll be talking to you because we do want to do these parenting classes. Yeah. We call it digital parenting. That's like, how do you, as a parent in a world that we didn't grow up in, number one. It's changing all the time, new apps, new places, new techniques inside of these apps, like the disappearing messages and stuff like. But how do we face this world, and how do we have those conversations? And I'll kind of end with this one because people always ask me, well, what do I do as a parent? The number 1 and 2 most important thing, I think, well, it's probably top 3, is you got to have a relationship, number 1, with your kids. Mm-hmm. You got to have one, and it has to be a safe place for them to come to. So when they do come to you, they feel like they can come to you again in the future, and maybe the next time they're actually going to reveal all of the truth instead of some of it. So that's super important. Dads have to be present in their daughters' lives and their sons' lives too. And I think that particular thing where girls' wives are seeking attention and need certain things, mostly just listen, you know, like to them and be kind and respectful and be there and be present. That's huge. And then this is one that I really like to talk about, which I think people skip so much on podcasts, is educating young boys. What we don't want is our young boys to become a predator. Boys should be taught to never ask girls for a photo of her naked. Like, it's so common now for this to be happening. We've seen girls who's like, I'm shocked at how shocked people are. This has happened to me for the last 10 years.
Wow.
Children, boys, please stop. I know I was a boy once. I can't imagine being in this world, dude. I know, but we have to, it's so much deeper than even looking at the girl with respect and all that. Like, you can't start becoming a predator at 15 because eventually that 15-year-old is going to be 25. And so where's that behavior has to stop now. You know, and we need to, as parents, talk about that with it, you know, like we have to start talking to the boys too. It's not just the girls, because the boys are going to be initiating it and making it common. Because now girls aren't just getting asked by their boyfriend, they're getting asked, you know, and it's not always like, hey, first send me a naked picture. It's like, hey, send me some pictures of you in your bikini. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, your bra and underwear is just like a bikini, you know, in certain things. And then it can just go sideways in those pictures. There's actually a website now that, we can probably follow up with this, that if a girl does end up sending that photo to somebody, she can send that photo through this website and they will make sure that if that image ever shows up anywhere, they will remove it. Oh. So that's good. There's technologies out there that are happening so that it can protect, because girls don't understand this too. Like, I send that photo, that dude now has control of that photo anywhere. And moms, same thing when you're posting. Those photos of your kids that you're so proud of, like, I can just hold my finger on that if it's an open account and it'll save onto my phone and then I can just start sending them or doing whatever. So just boys, just be careful. You know, don't ask it. Just stop that right now, like moving forward. I wish we could all just agree, like, boys, don't ask. Yeah. You know, just stop asking for them.
One thing that might resonate with the listeners as well is there's a prolific child abuser. I'm pretty confident his name is Jack Reynolds. You can look him up, and they do a lot of interviews, and he's super open about his time as a predator abusing kids. And they said, well, what do you look for in a child that makes you want to pursue him? Is it a demographic, boys, girls? He said, I have my things, that my proclivities. He's like, but the number one thing that would help me determine whether I was going to pursue a kid or not is I looked at the family. And if I thought the dad was a threat, I avoided that child and went somewhere else. So dads, be a threat.
There you go. So that picture of me behind my daughter with my gun.
Big time.
Perfect.
Exactly right.
Going to her first dance. All right. It was funny. I just grabbed my rifle. I just slung it real quick and went out there. We were just doing a joke. And there's always somebody who's like, hey, bro, you don't have a mag in that. And I'm like, son of a bitch.
The thought.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. Warriors. Keyboard warriors.
Like, awesome. Right on.
I love that little thing. So dads, get out there and train.
Yeah. Be a dad.
Well, and here's the reality. I know this is kind of corny to talk about, but it goes right along with what you're talking about. But I was in the parking lot when you pulled in, and I saw you get out, and I just, I'm always sizing people up and doing whatever. But I was like, that dude, badass. I wouldn't mess with, right? But you come off as a threat. Like, if you were walking with a child or somebody's like, they're gonna go like, not an easy target, not a soft target.
I need people to know that if I mess with that kid, that dude's putting an axe in my forehead.
Yeah. The only threat this guy is to a sourdough cookie contest. He is phenomenal at making bread.
Don't get me going. Dude, that was, man. I am going to make my kids listen to this podcast and the one we did with Angie, because, my kids are a little bit older, but they're still at that age, right? So it's like, it's important, and I will 100% have them when we do that class.
Yeah, and then one-offs. We do several one-offs where if you put that event together, we'll talk for an hour or whatever, and just
we will make that.
We will
100%. We're all about that
stuff happen.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a huge event. We like to go to places where there's like 12 people. But it's the right people.
Intimate.
We'll have
it's intimate.
So
and just we'll have sourdough there.
We can do sourdough. Yeah,
we'll do it. I'm into it. I love it.
All right, Nate Lewis, Brad Johnson, The Innocent. Thank you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you.